Alright, welcome back to another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. D-Free here, and today we're going to take a look at Super Saiyan Future Trunks, a new future. So he is the latest awakening, I like to say rebirth because it has the same kind of connotation, but at the same time, he's not technically a rebirth because he doesn't get the rebirth link, nor does he require the rebirth-based medals. But that being said, he is the awakening of the History of Trunks intelligence Super Saiyan Trunks. So let's go ahead and take a look at that card initially, and I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my thoughts on this unit, my breakdown of him. I don't think I've ever actually done a formal breakdown of this Trunks specifically. So, quick note, this is the Trunks that I'm talking about. He kind of Dokkan awakens from that base form Crying in the Rain Trunks from the History of Trunks event. I think that event is actually currently live on Japanese version of Dokkan Battle. So, what this Trunks can be used for, I believe it says so down here. He can be used to farm the super attacks of these three Trunks cards here. The Intelligence Rage Trunks, the Tech one, and then the Physical one. So, if you want to up their super attacks, you can use this guy for that. You probably want to use the... I don't know if you can, actually. Okay, so there's different ways to farm their super attacks. I believe I have a different video on it. But since he's Super Saiyan Trunks, he shares the exact same name as them, so they cannot be on the same team. Any of these four units cannot be on the same team. This one, these three down here, he can also be used to up the super attack of those guys. However, the Tech one has an extra stipulation because you can use the Trunks STR one that turns into Super Saiyan Rage Trunks, who actually has a different name. I'm pretty sure he has a different name. If he doesn't, he should be listed here. Matter of fact, I don't think he does now that I think about it. Either way, the base form of that one can be used to farm the Tech one up. So, yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. This guy, Super Saiyan Trunks Future. Yeah, they all have the same name. He should have been listed there on the other one, like I thought. But either way, let's go ahead and take a look at the awakening of the card. I actually want to go back to it and see how he has changed, as a matter of fact. So, Toronkusa. Super cringy. So, a while ago, maybe like a week ago, I did a video where I talked about the upcoming rebirths and stuff, and it had Rose on the thumbnail for the LR Rose Zamasu card, in which I broke that card down too, and I'm going to do a separate video giving my thoughts on it, probably like maybe this weekend, but either way, I talked about the awakening of this Trunks in that, and I want to say that there was a translation error, which kind of makes a lot more sense when you look at this card in particular. So this card initially had extreme damage as a super attack modifier, and his passive was attack plus 50% when facing 2 or more enemies. He's 100% free to play, by the way. Golden Warrior, the Saiyan lineage, Super Saiyan, Vegeta family, Saiyan Warrior race, and a Dismal Future, which I believe is a 1 key link. So he wasn't a bad card to begin with. He was definitely a solid free-to-play card, especially because of the percentage increase on him. A lot of cards kind of get shafted with that flat increase. And the thing is that, depending on when they come out, it may not be that big of a deal because, you know, that flat boost kind of nets them as being one of the most powerful units at the time. But the thing is, as the game progresses, that becomes a lot less significant. So the main example of that is Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, because when he dropped, man, he was like the hardest hitting card in the game, the best demigod, and now there's legitimate claims to say maybe he's like the 3rd or 4th best demigod nowadays because the way that he hasn't aged well. So Trunks was well before his time in getting that, and he's also the benefactor of a good restriction. So 2 or less enemies isn't that big of a deal. The only time that you'd ever really be fighting 3 or more is if you're on a story stage, maybe where you're fighting a whole bunch of like grunts at one time. If you're in the world tournament, you know, that's situational too in the world tournament, because you may obviously be fighting a whole team, then Trunks isn't there yet, but you kill most of the team, and there's like 1 or 2 guys left, and then Trunks shows up and he can technically get his passive. So that's a little situational. But aside from that, the only other time I can think of would be on a Dokkan event, but on the first stage. Most of the time it's on the first stage. Sometimes the second stage is a couple of enemies, but that's about it. So most of the time, point being, most of the time, this Trunks will get that passive. So not a bad unit whatsoever, but you could clearly see where his free-to-play kicked in with the extreme modifier. Around this time that he came out, he's like, man, this Trunks like a year old, honestly. He's probably really close to being a year old, if not already past that mark. But in relation to the Japanese version, of course. But either way, if you look at this card, that extreme modifier is kind of what they were giving cards for free around that time. Nowadays, you see cards, they come out, they don't care anymore. They're giving them all Supreme. I'm pretty sure Goku Jr. has it. Super Saiyan 3 Goku has that, the free-to-play version, Bio Broly, Supreme. Like, because Supreme has become outdated, it was the best modifier, which, along with Catastrophic, which kind of doesn't exist anymore because Catastrophic and Supreme were the same thing on the global version. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the Trunks has changed and evolved with his updated version of the card. So I didn't look at his leader skill, by the way, which it isn't a bad leader skill. 30% HP attack and defense there. It instantly jumps up to 70%. That's not a bad leader skill. If you got a well-linking team, maybe, which he doesn't care if it's super or extreme types, which gives you more variety. But you could take another, maybe, say, for example, Buhan, who gives those exact same parameter increases, but does not give that, but also gives a 3 key that Trunks does not. So say you take a Buhan friend, a LR Gohan friend who's a Buhan on steroids, basically, you know, and then you can cycle in a couple of guys that are able to support with ki. You don't have a problem with that, or your team links really well. You don't have a problem with that. So it's not a bad leader skill at all. Definitely a very solid one. So Heat Dome Attack now does supreme damage. His cost has jumped to 30, which honestly isn't bad for a max level Transcend UR 120 unit. So it's a really good cost if you're trying to do things like super strikes. And supreme damage, attack plus 70% when facing 2 or less. So the translations I initially saw, which Demayo let me down, but anyways, the translations I initially saw said 70% when fighting 2 or more, and that's why I kind of harked on him. I was like, really, man, like, damn, that's so bad. Why would they do that? But it makes more sense now because the initial card had 2 or less. He just gets an increase to 20%. He could have gotten better, but that's not that big of a deal because had he just gotten Rebirth, they probably would have given him 80% on the passive. But since he gets Fierce Battle, as we'll get to in a moment, you know, it's warranted that he gets 70%. He's a free unit. He's not meant to be tier 1. Definitely like probably like a tier 3 or 2.5 kind of unit for intelligence, for super intelligence technically, but still very good because he's free. So, and what I mean by free is you don't have to use stones to get him, because I know that there are some people that may not understand what that mechanic means because maybe they're new to this type of game or something. So I always try to make sure that I explain that for those type of people. Passive, like I said, 70%. Golden Warrior, Saiyan Lineage, Super Saiyan, Vegeta Family, all 4 of those links were on the initial one. Here's where he diverts. He loses Saiyan Warrior race in favor of Prepared for Battle. Thank goodness. Which that's kind of a given anyway, because basically every Super Saiyan card is getting that, and they have been for a while. So that's a given, but it's good. And that's a Saiyan exclusive link, which is why it's kind of weird that they don't give it to like Pan, for example, because she's still Saiyan, no matter how little of a Saiyan she is. Like I think she's a third of a Saiyan, but still, she's still Saiyan. It doesn't matter. But it is what it is. Prepare for Battle is a given. Dismal Future is a given because that's who he is. He's Future Trunks. And Fierce Battle on there. So that Fierce Battle is, damn, that's amazing, because not only does it help him, it helps the other units he's on his team with or on rotation with, which that's the biggest problem with the Rebirth units. While they don't get Fierce Battle, they get that Rebirth link instead, which can situationally be better if you're running a lot of Rebirth units and maybe you need the key because your leader is kind of funky or whatever the case is. It could situationally be a better thing in theory. The game's highly predicated on damage at this point. So while they don't get it, they themselves don't hit harder. But the problem with that is if, you know, you don't have, say, for example, you're running 2 or 3 Rebirth units and you get a scenario where you have one guy that has Fierce Battle and 2 guys with Rebirth. The guy with the Fierce Battle doesn't actually get to use it. So that's kind of what it is. So it also helps the other guys because he has Fierce Battle now. So he doesn't have to be like off-rotation fodder, which kind of is what Goku Jr. is. If you use Goku Jr., he's solid, right? Unless you have better options, he's an off-rotation unit, though. So that being said, I'm very happy that he got Prepared for Battle because that allows him to link well. Golden Warrior is an extra 1 key, and I think a defense reduction, but I mean, come on, who cares? And he got Super Saiyan, of course, and Fierce Battle. So very, very viable link set. One thing we didn't do is take a look at the stats. So he had 7,200 HP before. Now he's up to over 8,000. Over 8,000, the initial phrase there, not 9,000, 8,000. 7,500 attack now, up from 67. So that's a big increase. That's very good for him because the more attack he has, the better his passive is. So if you want to put him in the potential system, he's honestly not a horrible candidate for that. I just personally can't bring myself to really put too many orbs into the free units But the cool thing about the free units is that I've said so many times in this video. But the cool thing about the free units is that they are a little easier to get those 4 paths open for. So if you wanted to 100% them, that's a lot easier to do because you don't have to summon 4 duplicates on top of 1 card. So you need 5 copies of the card if you're trying to like get 100% on Super Saiyan 4 Goku, for example. You need to pull 5 of them. So that's a thing too. And then we have the last thing, defense. 43-38. I think that doesn't change much. Yeah, it doesn't. 42-55 doesn't really make that big of a difference. That's the most least important stat for a unit like Trunks, so it doesn't really matter. So overall thoughts on Trunks. I kind of alluded to it earlier, which, by the way, 130 key multiplier, is that the same? I think it's the same. 125 before. It's going to hit just a tad harder thanks to that key multiplier. But final thoughts on Trunks. Like I said, tier 2, tier 3 unit, which means like you have the upper echelon of intelligence units. And I'm talking specifically about the hero intelligence units, not like Buhan or Kid Buu, the villain types, the hero types. You have Gohan, you have some Goku variants, you have a couple of things, Gogeta up there in that tier 1, that upper echelon, and then you have, you know, the guys that are viable as replacements like the Ultimate Gohan, and you probably trickle this Trunks in there, the Goku Jr. So we're starting to see some more really viable free-to-play cards. As much as I hate Bio Broly, he does have a use in the game as a free-to-play card, so he's not horrible. He's probably like tier 2 as far as extreme tech goes, the villain tech units. So either way, this Trunks is very good. If you're lacking 1 or 2 options, definitely slide him into the team, and he's going to be very good for you. I have to get to farming this guy, so I don't know when I'll be able to do a showcase. I need to literally farm 10 of his initial card. Then I need to farm all the medals, and then the future Gohan base form medal has a habitually bad drop rate in this game. And I've already got the mission reward for it, so I'm unfortunately unlucky for that scenario. I'm going to have to really grind that out, but hopefully maybe sometime this week, maybe, I don't know, if the event is live. I'm pretty sure it is. But either way, have an awesome day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.